All right, everyone. It is 1 p.m. in Kitsap County. It's 46 degrees. It's Wednesday. You know what time it is. It's the best hour of your week. It is tipping points and puzzle pieces. I wanted to change up our little intro, music there and kind of remind me of I don't know, Episcopalian church organs. We might need something a little bit more upbeat next time. There's nothing wrong with the Episcopalian church organs, but it just seemed kind of dour. I don't know if the conversation is going to get dour today. The conversation goes all over the place. But it's always a good time. It's very informative and educational, and or as they may call it, edutainment. So without further ado, I must bring our captain of Trivial Pursuit. I don't know if he is a Trivial Pursuit player, but I think that he has a bunch of knowledge and probably has a lot of facts and stats that most people have no idea about. But let's go ahead and welcome our illustrious co-host today, Mark Boatwright-Frost.
Hey, y'all.
All right, how are you doing today?
I'm kind of all over the place today, as you said in the intro. I have a lot to talk about today and a lot of different subjects because there's a lot going on in our world right now. I mean, we stay away from politics, but no one can be unaware of all of the political things, nonsense and shenanigans that have been going on the last few days. But there's something really important that's happened, and I think that it's something we should have a few minutes to talk about here.
Did you say that we stay
We
away from politics?
we actually do. We don't talk about politicians very much. We don't talk about policy very much, and
Hmm.
that's from choice
Oh, okay.
because a lot of what we do with resilient ecosystems and the Kitsap Resiliency Project is bring people together to solve
You know,
problems.
you know I'll give you that because I think what gets kind of lost in the sauce is people can politicize anything, right? And so some things it's not a thing about politics. We're just having a discussion. So
Yeah,
I stand corrected. I got one more question for you. Is it
sure.
confirmed? Are you a Trivial Pursuit master,
I'm pretty good at it, but I wouldn't call myself a master.
but not a novice?
Not a novice. And of course, like anything, it depends on the category. Some things I'm way smarter at than others.
All
You
right.
start talking to me about 56 sitcoms, and I'm kind of out of that.
50
So
sitcoms. Yeah, I'd be out of that
yeah,
too. I wasn't around in the 50s.
yeah, I was sort of around in it, but I don't remember any of it. And those brain cells are buried under a whole bunch of dirt. So
Wow.
anyway,
So
so
go
I
ahead, do
wanted
your
to
thing.
say, I wanted to say, we passed a landmark this week, actually yesterday. The world population has hit 8 billion people. 8 billion. It's just, okay, Bill Gates has got more money than that, but we have 8 billion people on this planet with us as of yesterday. And that was a landmark that was coming for a while. And I want to share a couple of pictures with you that say the same thing, but say it radically differently. And I'd like Marwan to show this one right here. Yeah, this one here. That shows from the 1950s till this is 2050 the projections of population growth. And I will say that the projection a couple of years ago of hitting 8 billion wasn't for another 2 years. We've actually come in early and have hit 8 billion people. Question, always arises, can we feed that many people? What do we do with 8 billion people? And doesn't this chart look like a lovely standard growth chart that's just kind of like, a projected chart? Now I'm going to have Marwan put the other chart up.
It does. And just for context, but this is 1950 to when? 20, because it's a little bit
2050,
2050.
I think.
Okay. All right. So here's the next chart.
Okay, so this is the population growth from 1300 to 2000. Looks a little different, doesn't it? not quite so gradual growth.
Mm-hmm.
So about the time of the Industrial Revolution, we started producing lots and lots and lots of people. And we're at 8 billion now. To give context, when I was born, we were at about 2.7 billion people. So 65 years later, we're at 8 billion people.
So in
It's not a
65 years,
gradual 65
we
years, more
it's
than
doubled.
tripled.
Wow. Wow.
We hit 10 in this century, we have multiplied by 5. Just sink in for a minute. Now I know, the raging capitalists out there will be going, "Yes, larger customer base." The rest of us are going, "What about resources?" Now, we've said this before, and I just want, in this context, I want to um, get you to think about this: that scientists are saying we will not have food able to be grown in 60 years. The largest corporations in the world have come out with a report that said if we do not change our farming style, we will be destroying the planet. Their words, not mine. So here we are at 8 billion people, and I think it's a moment to pause and think about how we as humans do things. And then I want to get into the real, let's see, oh, hey, Rev. And I want to talk about how we view things and how corporations view things and how there's a significant connection here. So I want to go back to our school days. You remember your school days, Marwan, don't you? I remember mine.
It depends.
At any point during your school days, let's say grade school to high school, did you have these words come out of your mouth? Oh my God, how can they give me so much homework? Everyone is piling on a day's worth of homework all at once. How can I possibly get it all done? Did that ever come out of your mouth?
Not in grade school, no.
Well,
Maybe
all the
maybe
way through
junior
high
high?
school.
Yeah, maybe.
Junior
Oh, I
high,
didn't go
high
to high
school.
school.
Okay.
I only went to the ninth grade.
So,
Wow.
from my point of view, we were looking at it going, wow, how can they possibly think we can complete all of this work in one night?
Mm.
So, now I'm going to give you the context for the day's discussion.
Oh, okay.
Everybody thinks they're the only one doing it. Now, I was thinking in high school that they must all be together knowing, talking about this, and there must be some way for us to do this because I accept that the system understands understands the needs of the kids and was giving us the right information and was and this was all for a reason to improve us. I'm not that naive anymore, folks. But at that point, it was overwhelming. There was no way I could get all of the homework done, especially with athletics. There was just no way I could get it done.
Mhm.
As we go through life, I've learned, yeah, they were all looking at it from their own lens and their own needs and their own criteria. And they weren't thinking about the student, they were thinking about the process. And they all understood it as they were the only ones involved, and they were therefore the only ones changing the lives of the students in this way. In corporations, it's the same thing. They all think they're the only ones doing it. They don't look at things in a macro sense, they look at it in their own personal need. So when I was in Silicon Valley, I was in a meeting with a corporation who I won't name, and they came in and did a presentation to us. And their presentation was that we expect all of our subscribers to pay $200 a month. Nowhere at any time did they talk about the service those subscribers would be getting, or the offerings of content those providers would be getting, or the product those providers would, or those customers would be getting. Only the dollar amount. I want you to think about that for a minute. That predominantly corporations focus on dollars. They don't think about offerings, and they certainly don't think about the customers. Anyone who's spent time on customer service in the last couple of years will understand they don't think about customers. So when you think about that, and you think about corporations that way, and we can go in and talk about when CEOs started being bonused on stock to a much greater degree than their salaries. Stock became the product of most of the corporation, of the publicly traded corporations, and the focus of corporations changed from providing products to customers to creating revenue streams for shareholders. And that's pretty much what all of the product is in most corporations these days. There are variations, so don't please jump on the line on the thing and saying, "Well, you're wrong." This example, yes, I give you. There are examples of corporations that don't do that, but the majority of them do. So when we look at that, and they all think they're the only ones doing it because they're all in their own little bubbles. Just like in most situations, we think of what we do as irrelevant to the larger picture. So here's the punchline. It isn't irrelevant to the larger picture. And I'm going to start with a non-environmental, non-world destroying discussion about that. Marwan and I run nonprofits. We work every day trying to make things work with too little money and too many people in need. And Marwan more than even I, because we don't provide the services that Marwan provides. So we have to deal with corporate entities that provide services to us: internet, phones, electricity, all of the things that a company needs to survive and to thrive. So we just got hit with an increase in one of our services without any warning. They just said, "Oh, we're going to raise it 30%." I can tell you that G2 also got hit by the same company with a 30% increase in fees for going forward. This is something we can't prepare for. This just happens. And they think they're the only one doing it, but we got hit in the last month and a half. We've gotten hit 4 times with significant increases in costs of doing business with corporations. None of them gave us any warning that this was coming. And all of them are only paying attention to their own bubble. So let's look at this in macro now. One of them is fine. 4 of them might make it so that we couldn't do operations moving forward.
Is fuel one of those?
It hasn't been, but I can tell you that
Oh, it eased up, but it was hard
yeah,
there for
it was.
okay,
But
call it. It
these are
got really
these are
high.
core business. Yeah, these are core business services, and they're increasing the cost without consulting with with their clients, and just treating us like income streams that we are, as opposed to customers who should be getting quality service and be partners in their growth, which is how business
Mm.
was supposed to be, and it is supposed to be done. And that's a lot of us still think it should be done, and much to our surprise, it is not done that way. So now let's talk about more macro. If Marwan's company ceases to function because it has been costed out by increasing fees from doing their services, then hundreds of other people are now impacted. Food will not be delivered. People will not be transported where they need to be. And I want to bring up that tomorrow the weather report says it's going to be 30 degrees tomorrow night and Saturday and Friday and Saturday, which means the cold weather shelters are going to be opening for homeless people. And G2 delivers homeless people to cold weather shelters so they don't freeze to death. There are hundreds of people relying on G2 to provide services. And if corporations drive them out of business by upping their fees without regard to the customer, or without even informing the customer, you end up with a problem for hundreds and hundreds of people, not just the business. We are all connected. Understand that we are all connected. Things do not happen in a vacuum. We all affect each other. Even the things we think and do in our own head affect each other. And I will tell you that our organization is marginal because we don't get funded by grants or the government. We get funded by private donation, and there aren't a lot of those because we don't have this brilliant shiny object to show you. We have just the change of our thinking to going into the future. So if we go out, it won't be as noticeable if G2 goes out, but there also won't be a path going forward, or people teaching people how to lead that path forward. So in the long run, us going away impacts the future. And this is happening not only to G2 and us, this is happening to all nonprofits because we all use the same systems and services. So when we all look at things from our own bubble and don't get outside of our bubble, we affect a lot of things. This is something we all need to start thinking about, and it's part of what we teach in our workshops. Is that we need to understand that all of us are connected. It doesn't seem so, and our culture has pushed us farther and farther and farther apart. And so that we even think more so that we're in our bubble. We think more so that what we do doesn't affect anybody else because we're all feeling like we're individuals moving forward, and we don't move forward. We're just trapped. Oh, good. Thank you, Marwan.
Mhm.
And they will be opening probably tomorrow because they open when it gets to be 32 degrees. Side note, I've always kind of like scratched my head on that. Why 32 degrees? But there you are. Um, but they open at 32 degrees, and I will be on with them. I will be doing work on Friday. And a lot of the work I'll be doing, like I did last week, was taking people to cold weather shelters so that they can survive the night. And then there are people that provide day places for people to go and be warm, and we will be driving people there as well. And that's what G2 does a lot of the winter, and that's something to note. So, do those people matter? I mean, they matter to me. They're human beings. They should matter to everyone. But I understand that we don't tend to think that way. And it would be nice if we could come together and start creating the change we need to see in the world. Thank you, Gandhi. Um, that's the only way it's going to change. Your politicians aren't going to change it. They don't get reelected for changing things. They get reelected for rallying people together to think that something's going to happen. And I don't want to get busted by a whole bunch of people talking about the politicians. I understand that you hold this dear to your heart, and whatever party you are, you think that your party is going to make things happen. But I'm a historian, and I don't have the luxury of believing that nonsense. I get to see how things have changed in the past, and what has changed things in the past, and how long those changes occur, because we're in a rotating system that has been rotating again and again and again for thousands of years, and it's time for us to hop off the wheel. And we need to do that together, and we need to learn how to do that together, and we have to unlearn a bunch of stuff. And I invite people to join us to do this, but I get why you don't. And part of that is because we're all in our own bubble, in our own head, thinking that we're the only ones that are doing something when we aren't. And we can take this down to even more personal things. I don't think Marwan heard this. And actually, Marwan, you want to go share screen on this because I want to see your face when I tell the story.
Uh-oh.
So for those of you who know, and I've said this almost every time, I drive for G2 periodically because I really enjoy the experience. I talk to a lot of good people. And yesterday morning, I ended up driving somebody to Port Orchard at very early in the morning. I think like 6:30. And I was driving back from Port Orchard, and I was hitting shipyard traffic coming down off of Tremont onto the freeway. and I was cruising along. I am a cautious driver. Not I wasn't always, but I have learned to be outside of my bubble when driving. And we were coming down, starting to come down the hill toward Gorst, and everything slowed up, and I started backing off even more. And suddenly I heard the of an accident, two cars in front of me.
Mm.
And very quick reaction time. Thank God for the guy in front of me and myself. Almost not as quick a reaction time for the guy behind me. But luckily, everybody had moved to the left lane from the right lane, so there was nobody in the right lane. And the guy in front of me and I both slid, brakes locked, leaving skid marks into the right lane at an angle and missed the accident. And I was 3 inches from getting rear ended. So the people pulled over and we kept going on the road. And I just want to bring this back to we all are in our own bubble. We all
And you
think we're
wanted to
the
see
only
my
ones
face
doing
fly?
it. Huh? I'm
You
sorry,
wanted to
that
see
broke
my
up.
face fly?
Yeah.
So what I would tell you, when we were partnering with Kitsap Transit, uh, it takes a lot to be licensed to operate those vehicles, right? They're van
Hmm.
pool. If you get into an accident, even if it wasn't your fault, that driver loses the ability to pilot that vehicle. The
Yep.
organization, if and that's if you're in your own vehicle or another vehicle. If you're in a van pool van, it wouldn't matter if it wasn't your fault. You lose the organization loses its ability to have a van pool vehicle from Kitsap Transit. And what's so
Yep.
harsh about that is, when you think about um, the
How it affects
percentages
all the
of
other people.
accidents. Well, no. The percentage of
Yeah.
it does affect other people, but the percentages of how it increases, based on the time on the road, right? We're on the road, so much as a transportation organization, right? Our
Hmm.
odds of getting into an accident raise exponentially.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? But that automatically cancels you out, which, would say, hey, now all of a sudden we're not able to provide service because of something else that happened outside of our own control. And I think that is one of the
Yep.
issues that we have in, our society, and a critique to Kitsap Transit, and other agencies, right? It's like, okay, we talk about the cost of doing business, right? In business, there are risks, um,
Hmm.
but the risk, the consequence shouldn't be so dire that if a person is doing everything right and something happens, they lose their ability to operate, right? That's not fair. It's not helpful. And there are a lot of things that are set up like this in society that kind of keep us from moving in a positive direction.
Which brings me back to the point is everything's connected. The guy driving too close while texting on his phone, it can impact the ability to provide service to hundreds, even thousands of people.
Well, even more than that, right? 'Cause we
Yeah.
provide. I can't remember what our ride list was. We do 5,000 rides. Let me not quote that. It is in the thousands though.
Yeah.
It's a lot of rides, a
So
lot of
we have
individuals.
we have a situation where we have people who are thinking, I can text while driving and I do just fine. I can text while driving while tailgating and do just fine until you
Put
don't.
on makeup,
Huh?
have your dog in your lap.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Putting on
like, we
makeup.
see a lot of crazy things while on the road.
And so everybody's thinking they're the only one doing it and they're getting away with it. So let's say that again, getting away with it. Odds are you're not going to get away with it forever. You just aren't. When the consequences are dire, ask her to start out. If it's just about you, ask yourself, what am I going to do without my car while it's being repaired, if it can be repaired? And I will tell you, the guy that rear-ended the other guy, his front end of his car was toast.
It was dry yesterday, right?
It was dry. It was dark. It was cold, and all of the traffic was caused by a truck that pulled over to the side. And in between the merge lanes from Port Orchard and there, and everybody slowed down because the semi pulled over into that median area, and I saw that afterwards.
Wow, why'd the semi pull over?
I have no idea,
For
but it was
whatever
there.
reason.
I'm sorry, you got. I don't think that. I think we're being spammed.
Yeah, it happens from time to time.
Well, were they captive before?
Were
Sorry.
they captive?
Um,
uh, one thing I wanted
sorry.
to say is,
Yeah.
it happens from time. It's actually been a little while since we've been spam like that. Uh, when it rains in Washington, one of the, I guess, running jokes that we say is, we're from Washington, we live in Washington, and people can't drive in the rain. It's dry for a stretch, and as soon as it rains, here come all the accidents, right? We're gonna be
Yeah.
dealing with black ice, and possible snow. I think this is gonna probably be a harsher winter than normal. So
Yep.
please, folks, be careful out there. We try not to be in a hurry. Good afternoon there, Brother Bailey. Uh, don't be
Hey,
in a
Bailey.
hurry. That's kind of my attitude when I'm in a grocery store. I'm just having a
Leave
conversation.
space. Leave space. Please leave space.
Yeah, leave space. Yeah, and let other people in. You know, the zipper technique really does work. And having two cars in front of you because you let two cars in, so what? It's just not that serious. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, what happens is when you're not letting that person in because you're pissed off because that person, someone else didn't let you in. When it does free up, you end up catching that car anyway, and passing them up.
Yeah.
I've had
So,
more than one instance where I there was an aggressive driver, right? And I got frustrated and they zip, they're weaving in and out of traffic, they get far out ahead, and 10 minutes later, they're pulled over by the cop. And it's like, you know what I
I,
mean?
I
It wasn't
I
that
see it.
it wasn't that
I
important.
see it, and then I pull up the light. I pull up to the light right next to them, and I'm like going, and that got you where faster? You got to the red light just as I did.
Well, I don't recommend that. That can be very dangerous today, but,
Yeah.
don't talk to the
So,
other vehicle.
but my point is, we're all in our own heads, and our
Facts.
culture teaches us to be in our own heads. So let's look at that from the ground up. Um, I'm sorry I can't share some of the things that are popping up here, but they're kind of they're really good. Um, if we're on our own heads and we're trained to be on our own heads, and we are more and more isolated all the time, then we need to start looking at getting out of our heads and getting connected to other people. We need to um, understand somehow we need to get to a place that we feel connected. And again, I'll promote the workshops because that's what we do there. We're teaching the leaders and the teachers of the people to come with as they start connecting those dots. We need people other than just me to understand the process, understand the change that has to happen, to be able to engage in those conversations. And from just a basic point, no one person can say it in a way that many people will accept it, because we are all different, and we all have our different filters. We all have our different understandings of how life works. We have come to a point where we can't even hear other people because of our filters. We can hear what we think they say, but we can't hear what they say. And almost every seminar I've attended on how to communicate better says, play back to the person what you think you've heard, and then find out where you're not hearing. And
Mhm.
that's something we all need to do, and that's something that has to be learned, because none of our experience has taught that to us unless you've gone through classes like that, and even they don't go far enough, because they're pretty general. We need to start talking to each other and coming together on a grassroots level and talking about human needs, because we don't have a working social contract. And we can go through that in graphic detail, from starting from the fact that the Supreme Court a few years ago said that the police aren't really required to protect the public safety.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, so we need to start. understanding that the things we accept as real may not be real. And we need to start coming together and figuring that out. And if you think that you don't have anything to bring to the table, guess again. You have a lifetime of experience and opinions. And even if we don't agree, we can find a place of commonality.
Mm.
I've often said, the commonality may be my grandmother's and your grandmother's lemonade recipe. It doesn't matter. If we can come to a place of commonality, we can build trust and have open conversation and find solutions. If you don't think you have anything to bring to the table, you do. Listen and you ask questions, because your question may trigger something that will create a whole new path. So, and if nothing else, you'll meet new people and have new experiences. And that is vital to all of us. We are in this together, even if we don't believe it. And if we aren't in this together figuring out the solutions, we won't be in it together, and the earth will go on without us and we'll be fine. I've said this before. Scientists have said in 400 years without mankind, there will be no sign that we existed, or very little sign that we existed. And I don't know about anybody else out there, but I have a 25-year-old daughter that is my reason for doing this every day. And that's something we have to think about. Our children. 8 billion people on the planet, a lot of them children. What does their future look like? There's a lot of things we can figure out, but we have to figure it out together. And you notice I'm not talking about, the UN or COP27 or politicians, because all we have to do is read the news to understand that that's not going to happen. And we aren't going to be able to elect a leader or a ruler or whatever that's going to make it happen either, because they will have been trained by our culture the same way we have been trained by our culture. And it's going to be us holding each other accountable, having discussions, and learning from each other that is going to make this change. There's no other way to do it. And trust me, I say no other way. I don't believe in a one right way. But the only way we can make this change is together. So that's the way that this cookie crumbles. And the reason the corporations think that they're the only one doing it is because everyone in those corporations has the same mindset, and it's just easy to accept that, okay, we're going to raise the rates. Well, the same pressures that are on them are on every other company, because the economy isn't doing as well as it could, and profits are going down, and are going to continue to go. And I can't wait to see what Christmas brings this year, because homelessness is increasing, and homeless people don't go out and buy a whole bunch of gifts. People who don't have money to pay rent aren't going to go out and buy gifts, and rent's going up all over the country. Another factor that it affects all of us is that rent's going up. People are becoming homeless because they can't find any place to afford, and that's going to require us coming together. This is not a unfortunate happenstance that happens to others. It happens to all of us, and it's time we stood together against it, or for a different way. Against doesn't really work, but we need to move forward together into a different path. And, it is the science of tipping points. When 20% of us are walking one way, the others will fall in, and then the corporations will change because their market just moved. And real estate people will change because they're not going to be selling homes the same way. And government will start regulating the way they need to regulate these people, because the people will not stand for it if they do not. And then we can get climate action, because we will be thinking about it together. So I invite you to come down on the 26th to the final open workshop. Every workshop after this one will be a closed workshop for people who have been to the first ones. Um, and join us in the conversation. That's, that, I can only invite, I can't make you do it. But pretty soon, in the very next 10 years, it's going to get kind of dire. Food prices are going to continue to rise. Um, the quality of things are going to keep dropping. And, when we most depend on it, it will fail on us because they need us to buy more. And that's just a reality. That's the life we live in. And it's going to require us together to change it. You can go to the politicians and you can write letters and protest and rally about it, post on Facebook, the most useless thing you can do. And it's going to continue to happen because they don't care, and you're alone. And the politicians, let's face it, they get reelected, the money for reelection from these companies that you want to hold accountable. So it's time to come together, folks. And I don't know how to say it any other way. I'm a little tired today because it's been, I've had the last 24 hours, I've spent 8 of them on the phone with tech support from corporations that don't give a damn whether my stuff works or not. So it's it's dire, and every one of us is experiencing it. And the only way we aren't going to experience it is together. So, you have any thoughts, Marwan?
I do. I'm typing them right now.
Okay,
Let me just finish this last sentence here while you keep talking there.
okay. Um, yeah, you can stay home. You can watch TV. You can be angry on Facebook. You can rally about the 8 billion. You can be afraid. You can do whatever you want to do. But as long as you're doing it alone, nothing's going to change.
You know, some of my thoughts on that are, I belong to a lot of different circles, right? Resilient ecosystems is a circle.
Hmm.
G2 is a circle, right? Um, Library system now is a trustee. That's a circle, right? So I'm in all these different circles, and I'm gonna, post something, and I want you to read it uh, to the audience, and then
Okay.
answer the question, and then take feedback from folks. And in that, it can be very difficult to find a place into which you belong, right? Um, Now, for me, I I understand what it's like to be alone, to be lonely, and to feel like you're isolated and you don't belong anywhere, right? You're not a part of this group or that group or whatever group. Kind of hence the name, gather together, grow together, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't matter who you are or what you are, you know, there's a space for you. And of course, we have our things and we have our own cultural norms and things that we do. But at the same time, that's kind of in response to, and that might be one of the answers, right? Create your own thing to belong to, so that you can kind of have that space. Uh, I would say that a lot of people are doing a lot of the work, right? You got Bailey on here and Rob and
Mhm.
Pastor Ellington. There are people that are doing
Absolutely.
tremendous things uh, in the community, and they don't have to. They just don't, right? No one no one listening is independently wealthy to where they can just do whatever they want, right? Most of us are struggling, day to day, and it's hard enough just to maintain our own situation and the situations for our family. And I don't wouldn't look at it as a selfish thing, but really, no one could blame us for, trying to look out for ourselves and our families first and foremost and putting our energy there. But yet we extend ourselves beyond and further. And what people see is I just bought a lottery ticket. Uh, and what we see is, folks are they're tired, they're weary, but they keep on going. Um, you know, last Saturday, speaking of Bailey, right? I got a message and said, "Hey, two young folks OD'd. Can you come down here and bring the conduit down?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm on the way." And that's how my day went. And so we're tireless in the work, but the work needs to be done, and someone has to be I say brave enough, but dare. I used the word temerity last Saturday, to have the temerity to make a difference in humanity, to make a difference in other people's lives and understanding by, it may seem counterintuitive, but by giving to others, you're actually helping yourself and your family, right? Because you're creating an environment, a space, a community where everyone can thrive, right? And so if you see everyone else suffering around you, but you're doing well, right? Eventually, your children, like you said, your 25-year-old daughter has to go out in that world. So, what world are you releasing her into, right? And you're not able to insulate her in these things. And we see day in and day out, all of this collateral damage, random acts of violence, or getting caught up in things um, and you can't foresee everything, right? And so, for me, uh, this is my life, right? This is what I'm dedicated to. This is what my mission is, and I'm going to do the best I can. And I'm definitely not going to do it in a perfect way. I can be emotional, I can be irrational at times. I think I'm a pretty logical person. I'm a passionate person, uh, and so I kind of leverage what you were saying before on what you want people to bring, right? The knowledge, skills, and abilities, that experiential learning to bear and try to improve the lives of other people in whatever capacity that's in, and don't allow anyone to judge you for your contribution, right? You're doing what you can. Can we all do a little bit more? Sure. Can we do it a little differently? Absolutely. And I think the differently would be is for all the great people that's listening, you know we're all doing these wonderful and great things, but if we can find a way to come together and synergize what we're doing, we're going to be able to do so much more and bring other people on the journey. I tell a lot of folks that are struggling in their lives, while you're trying to work on your life, the things that have gotten you to this point don't typically happen overnight,
Nope.
right? It took you may have been in that life for years, right? So you're not going to reverse that overnight, but there's a power in helping other people, right? And while you're kind of focused on helping others, right, within reason, right, you can't help others to the point where you're not taking care of yourself. But when you're helping other people, when you look back, you're going to recognize, what, it took me 3 weeks to get my social security card, right? uh but I've been helping people, and that 3 weeks didn't seem like 3 weeks. It only felt like a week. Seems like I just put that application in, right? And it helps time go by, and it does your heart good, because you're providing hope to someone else while you're trying to, make sure that you stay hopeful, right? That you stay in good spirits as you go forward. So that's one of the things that I would encourage for folks to do. I know I've said a lot. I'm going to be somewhat vulnerable here, and I'm going to just kind of put this in the chat, and I'm going to ask Mark to read it, and then I would like to get feedback from you guys on what I can do or what other people like me can do. There you go.
Okay. Question for the chat. I grew up in foster care until I was 5. Was adopted and then went back into foster care after I got out of Echo Glen at 15. Left living at the YMCA on 4th Avenue downtown Seattle till I was 17. Started a family at 20. Was married in 2006 and started another family. Was divorced around 2016. Don't fit into most of the black culture. Not part of a church in my adulthood. Not connected to sports, music, gangs. Don't think like progressive liberals. Don't think like MAGA conservatives. Started life homeless. Been homeless as an adult. Where do I belong? How do I belong? When I try to belong, am quickly reminded of that my views are not welcome. I cannot come to a class on Saturdays. Mark and audience, what can I do? Well, first of all, you sat through a earlier version of the workshops as you filmed them all, for which I will be eternally grateful. And you do fit in, Marwan, because you're my brother, and that's just how it is. We work together, we respect each other, and we're different people, and that's the way life is. We are all different. And we come from different backgrounds and we come from different experiences and we come from very, very different places. And it's that strength of the differences that brings us together and makes us powerful. Alone, I am the sum of the knowledge that I contain. I am not the sum of all knowledge. And understanding this makes me welcome those of different points of view into my life. Um, the only things I don't respect and have trouble with are divisiveness for divisiveness sake, and for no purpose but hate and self empowerment. But if you come with an open heart and you um, are willing to have open conversations and seek commonality together, I think that's the way that life grows, and I think that's how we come together. And in fairness, Marwan's heard a lot of what I teach. I've varied it and brought it into different places, but into different ways of presenting it because you have to. You have to talk to people in different ways. But I also don't fit into any one group. I never have. I was an athlete. Um, I was a member of several churches in my time. I have tried to be parts of different communities. I was part of the Society of Creative Anachronism. I did Renaissance fairs. I've done historical reenactments. I'm engaged in a lot of things, but I was never part of any community. And I think part of it is because the community doesn't, the communities I tried to be part of, and this is, of course, not speaking about any other communities except those in my experience, were around very specific things and not around people. And about our shared humanity. And I don't think that that's something that we do easily because it's something that um, we aren't taught. We aren't taught how to connect with each other. We're taught a series of information and data, but we don't see how the dots connect. We don't see how we connect. We are told that we don't we shouldn't like each other, trust each other because of our skin color, our age, our gender fluidity, our religion, our whatever the billions of different things that we have to other each other on. And that is just to keep us apart and keep us from talking to each other. Our natural state as human beings is to connect. And it's time we remember that. It is time we exercise those muscles and learn how to find commonality because we have far more in common as human beings than we have different. Our differences are cultural and experiential, and those are the things that bring beauty to a relationship. And that's what we're looking to build. And I wish it was easy. I wish I could just wave a magic wand and say, we will all connect and understand each other. That's not the way it works. And Marwan, I mean, you are my brother. You are. We work together, we respect each other, and we are so very different. And part of it is because we have dedicated ourselves to spending the time to listen to each other, to find our commonality. And we found the commonality in the work that we do. And our approaches are vastly different. And that is as it should be, because with different approaches, you have greater outcomes. Thank you, Bailey. And I will accept a hug from you at any time. And that's just how we have to be. And I can't say it anymore. We need to come together. I teach the workshops because I have an inkling, a small fraction of an understanding of how this works. And I can tell you how we got here. That's the starting point. That's what I'm working on this week, on the 26th. After that, we will be talking about successful grassroots networks and how they're developed. We will be training people on how to go back to their communities and start developing conversations. without triggering cognitive dissonance, and get people to actually start talking to each other for their own common good in their neighborhoods. And this is not an overnight thing. When we started Resilient Ecosystems, we set a decade aside to even get traction. But time's running out, folks. We aren't going to have very much longer. And if we don't come together, we aren't going to be here. And you can believe me or not, but science pretty much backs up what I'm saying. And we need to find a way to accept each other and find commonality. So that's where we are, and that's where we have to be. And this whole show that we've been doing is about understanding what goes on in our life, what goes on from us human all the way up to the corporations and how they mirror each other, and how our lives are being degraded and how humanity is being degraded by it. And the only way forward is together. And we have to figure that out. Um, Marwan and I, and just as kind of a punchline to this whole thing, um, we are putting together. Marwan and I have been working with the county commissioners to put together an event for early next year. Well, springish next year. If we get approval moving forward, we are going to start putting together a community fest at the fairgrounds. And what we want to do is bring all of the people doing the work, Bailey, Rev, Kitsap Community Resources, into one space and invite the community and all of the people in to learn what everybody's doing, so that if they're there to support either through volunteerism or financially, or they have a need to keep from being evicted, to find a home, that they have a place to go. But more importantly than even that, and that unto itself is worth doing it, but more importantly than that, we want to put a sandbox in the room where all of us can talk to each other and find ways to create synergy and do more together. And that's, it's just another step of us coming together and learning how to talk to each other. And again, a lot of people aren't going to hear it the way I say it, but they'll hear it the way Bailey says it, or they'll hear it the way Rev says it, or they'll hear it the way Marwan says it. But the point is that people will hear things in different ways, and we all have to say it in our own way so we get the most people hearing and bring people together. Find a way so that we can sit down and not judge each other and look for commonality. And that's the message. And I hope you guys show up on the 26th. It's going to be at the library downtown at 11:30. We're going to have coffee first at Cups Cafe. And I'd love to see people there to have coffee with us, if not doing the workshops, but then we can do the workshops. Ah, okay. And the Marwan's reminding me that I need to talk about the upcoming events. We are One other thing we're talking about doing, and Marwan and I have to figure this out, is for those of you who aren't old enough, which is most of you, there was a movie in the 1970s called Soylent Green. It was from a book written by Harry Harrison called Move Over, or Make Room, rather. And it's about, it was based, when it was written, the date of the story was in 2022. And it's an interesting story. We'll give you further updates on that as we get there. We'd love to have a crowd of people, and we'd like to have a panel of a very diverse panel in front to talk about what they saw in the movie. And it was, again, a movie from the 70s, but it's so relevant today. And we'd like to bring that back. There will be a screening of Shockwave about the Cascadia Rising event planned for early next year, and talk about that. Yeah, Rob. Okay, throw the punchline out there, Rob. Um, yeah, I hate people like that spoil the punchline. Anyway, so let's talk about getting together, and let's go have coffee. And Marwan's telling me that I need to wrap this up, so I think he got tied up someplace. I hope someone unties the knot soon. and gives them time to breathe. And so I guess that's the show for today. I love you all. Love you to work together with us. If you think about what you guys do, it's so very important to plug the holes you plug and to feed people and to fight all of the things that fight to address all of the issues that are in the world. But I look at it a little bit differently. I look at what we're so strongly trying to address as symptoms of a diseased culture, and the only way we can reprogram the culture to be more human centric is together. And so that's my niche in the world. That's our niche in the world. It's what Marwan and I connected on and continue to move forward on. So thank you all for the participation. I really appreciate it. And next week's show will be the 40th. Or no, next week, the week after next. Next week is a pancake breakfast. We will be talking about the environment. I have a very close friend for years that is going to be talking about the Cayman Islands and the decline of fish. And I'm reaching out to you guys because I'm trying to find somebody who can talk about the decimation of starfish on the west coast of the United States. As part of that program, it will be a very much environmental centric and resource centric program. As we have 8 billion people, resources are going to become more of a question.
All right. Well, thank you for all of that, Mark, and thank you for the kind words. As you know, in about 2 minutes, we're going to be starting our broadcast of the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition. So see us over there in about 120 seconds. I think this is definitely a very powerful podcast today. Wanted to be a little bit vulnerable for folks. I know there are a lot of people that I speak with when I'm counseling that share their isolation. They share their loneliness. And so I'm not going to put someone else's story out there. So I'll put mine out there in hopes that it will help someone else that may be going through some of the similar things. We think about COVID and how isolating that was. That's the reason why I started the podcast in the first place. And it's definitely needed. Mental health is definitely a crisis in this country, as well as some other things. And so we're just trying to find our way to do our part to try to restore our community in any ways that we can, whether that's transportation, food, conversation, elevating voices, whatever that looks like. So,
By
Mark, I
gathering
appreciate
together.
you. Absolutely. Please stay safe out there. Two things to note. Again, we're going to have our meeting here in about 60 seconds now, and then we have City Council tonight at 5:30. This is the last opportunity for public comment as they solidify the budget for the 2023 year. So please tune in and make your public comment. We will be airing that live, and that is it. I'm going to end it now because I need to get over to the other side and start the show.
Well, hold on. I want to
Um,
have a discussion. No, I'm kidding. Kidding.
but we will see you next Wednesday at the Pancake Breakfast, 11 a.m., 4040 Wheaton Way, Suite 203. For Mark Boatwright-Frost, I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.